Have you ever looked at your orchid and just felt like it was a little sad? Well, what if I told you the secret to absolutely explosive root growth wasn't in some pricey fertilizer, but was actually sitting in your kitchen pantry right now? Today, we are going to brew up some incredible science and uncover how a simple teacup can literally recreate an entire rainforest for your favorite flower.
So here's our plan. We'll start with what's called the orchid's paradox to figure out the real problem. Then, we'll reveal the rainforest in a cup solution. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how tea replicates nature, give you the practical how-to, and finally, look at why this is real science and not just some voodoo gardening trick.
All right, let's dive right into our first section, the orchid's paradox. This really gets to the heart of why a plant that might look okay on the surface is actually, a little bit homesick. It's the question every orchid owner has asked themselves at some point, right? You see them in nature and they're just magnificent. They're clinging to trees, they're vibrant, but you bring one home and suddenly it feels like a full-time job just to keep it from giving up. So what's the deal? What are we missing? Well, it all comes down to this, the epiphytic paradox. See, in their natural habitat, orchids are epiphytes. That's just a fancy way of saying they grow on other plants, usually trees, not in soil. Their roots wrap around the tree bark, and every time it rains, the water washes down over that bark, picking up all sorts of organic goodies. Scientists call this canopy leachette. It's basically a rich chemical soup. But in our homes, we give them sterile potting mix and clean tap water. They're completely missing these essential chemical cues they've evolved to rely on for millions of years. So how in the world do we fix that? That brings us to section 2 and a solution that is so simple, it's beautiful. I call it a rainforest in a cup. And the answer is black tea. Seriously. But listen, this isn't about giving your orchid a caffeine boost. No, this is way more sophisticated. We're talking about ecological mimicry. We're using the compounds in tea to perfectly recreate that canopy leachate, that chemical soup, and give the orchid a real taste of the home it's been missing. Which leads us to the really cool part. Section 3, how does tea actually replicate nature? This is where we get to unpack the amazing biochemistry hiding inside a simple tea bag. This star of the show here is a group of compounds called tannins. You find them everywhere in tree bark, and you guessed it, they're also packed into tea leaves. These complex molecules are the key ingredient in that natural chemical soup an orchid craves from its rainwater. Okay, but why black tea? Why not green tea? Well, it's all about the chemistry. Green tea has simpler compounds. Black tea, though, goes through an oxidation process. And that process creates these bigger, more complex molecules that are remarkably similar to the acids you'd find on decomposing tree bark. It's just a much better mimic of what the orchid finds in nature. So, when you water your orchid with this weak tea solution, you're not just doing one little thing for it. Oh no. You're unleashing what the research calls a multifaceted biochemical attack that kickstarts root growth in 3 incredible ways. Okay, first thing it does, it fixes the pH. Most of our top water is a little alkaline, around a pH of 7.5. But orchids, they need a more acidic environment to actually absorb nutrients. The natural acids in the tea drop the water's pH right into the orchid's sweet spot, that happy place between 5.0 and 6.0. This triggers something called the acid growth hypothesis, which basically lets the root cells loosen up and expand like crazy. Second, tea unlocks the plant's food. The tannins act as natural chelating agents. Just think of them as tiny little keys. They go into the potting mix, find essential minerals like iron and magnesium that are locked up, and they unlock them, making them available for the orchid to finally absorb. And the third part of this attack? It protects the plant's own grow signal. Orchids produce a hormone called auxin. It's the primary signal that tells the roots to grow. But there are enzymes that naturally break this hormone down. Well, the compounds in tea stop those enzymes in their tracks. They basically preserve the auxin, keeping that growth signal on for way longer. And the result? More roots and bigger roots. So the science is totally solid. Now let's get our hands dirty and put this into practice. Section 4, the practical how-to. Here's exactly how you bring the rainforest into your living room. It's super simple. It's called the weak tea protocol. You just take one plain black tea bag, no fancy flavors, and steep it in about 2 cups or 500 milliliters of boiling water. Then, and this is really important, you let it cool down completely. Once it's cool, you dilute that with another 2 liters of water. You'll end up with this very, very weak, light amber-colored liquid. You want to use this about once every 3 waterings, especially when you see the plant is actively growing.
Now pay attention, because this next bit is absolutely crucial. The source material makes this very clear. You must flush the pot with plain, pure water on the other waterings. This is to stop tannins and salts from building up, which could clog the roots. So remember the rhythm. Tea, water, water, and then repeat.
All right, let's just zoom out for a second and look at the big picture here. Section 5, Beyond Voodoo Gardening. Because this is about so much more than just a little gardening hack. And this quote just says it all perfectly. This isn't some old wives' tale, it's not voodoo gardening. It is, and I quote, a sophisticated application of ecological mimicry. We're using our understanding of science to perfectly replicate a natural process. So here's the bottom line. We're not fooling the plant. We are finally speaking its language. By reintroducing those chemical cues from the rainforest, the right acidity, those tannins, the unlocked minerals, we are communicating with the orchid in a way it has evolved over millions of years to understand. And, as you'll see, its response is nothing short of explosive growth. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, if a simple little tea bag holds a secret to recreating an entire rainforest ecosystem, what other incredible natural secrets are just sitting there, hiding in plain sight in our pantries?